a text in the book of 2 Corinthians. 2 Corinthians. We do appreciate the home church allowing us to be here again these days. I appreciate it, Brother Frankie. I appreciate all you've done for us. And the snack box the other night, that was a blessing. Appreciate your kindness there. And what a joy tonight to have a couple of people here tonight, 2 or 3 people here tonight that mean a lot to me. My oldest son and a preacher friend of his. And I asked my oldest son tonight, I said, man, you come to hear me preach, I ain't going to die, am I? I've passed across a lot out of church, but very seldom we ever get to worship together. But I appreciate him coming. And then a couple that I pastored for a number of years, he led the singing for us. Sam and Gail Tyner, it's a joy to see you tonight. Thank you for coming here tonight. We have been since Sunday morning sharing some thoughts that were birthed some time ago out of a verse in 1 Peter. Peter made a statement, "Beloved, think it not strange concerning the fiery trials which are to try you, as though some strange thing has happened." It's amazing we Baptists tonight think we're just shocked when trouble comes, when God has very clearly said it's on the way. It's not about if it's coming, it's about when it's coming. And he said when it comes. I don't think it's strange. I've meditated for some time on that little word strange. It's the little word for a foreign minister or a foreign preacher. So we've been preaching in these days on strange ministries. Strange ministries. On an earthly level, very mundane level. God has some very weird ducks that he calls preachers. They come in all kind of packages. Fat ones and skinny ones. Tall ones and short ones. There's loud ones. Some you can't hardly hear. There are some that can preach, keep you on the edge of your seat. Some boring nap time. There are some that can sing, and there's some that dare not sing. But if they're a man of God, they'll have a message. Of course, it's like I told you Sunday, I know this is not your problem. All of you are much further down the road than I am. But my problem is I often get caught up with their package and their message gone. I miss the whole thing. But on a much higher plane than that spiritually, God will have some ministers come by the house. Oh, I assure you tonight, they're preachers too. But I get caught up with their package. Miss their message. We've looked at 4 of them so far. Sunday morning we looked at the strange minister of storms. Troubles, heartaches, difficulties. Oh my, they can preach a message. I get caught up with their package though, and I miss the message. We looked on Sunday night at the 2 on the road to Emmaus, the strange minister of disappointment. They said things didn't turn out the way they thought they would. Hey, Rev, disappointment, been by the house lately, things just didn't go like you thought they were going to go. And get caught up with his package. He's got a sermon to preach if you listen. Then on Tuesday night we looked at the strange minister of failure. Oh, you'll never go to the top till you've been to the bottom. Strange minister. Then last evening we looked at the strange minister of fear. Fear been by lately? Oh, he can get you to do some things you thought you'd never do. Get consumed with his package. Miss his message. Tonight I want to turn our attention again to a last strange minister in 2 Corinthians chapter 12. I'd like to look tonight at the strange minister of weakness. Weakness. Situations where I fall short. Just don't measure up. Fall short in my ability and strength to carry it, do it, be it, or understand it. Just can't handle it. Hey! Reverend Weakness made an appearance lately in your life. Found something come into your life and you say, man, I just can't handle this. You get caught up with his package. The old timers used to say, boy, he could shuck a corn. He could really preach. Weakness. This is the fair-haired boy in 2 Corinthians chapter 12. This is not some redneck from Georgia. This is the fellow that wrote over half the New Testament. Red Weakness has come by, preaching him a sermon. He says in 2 Corinthians chapter 12 and verse 7, lest I should be exalted above measure. The abundance of the revelation that was given to me of thorn, excruciating pain and agony is the word. Something that continually without end hurts is the word thorn. In the flesh, the messenger of Satan to buffet me, lest I should be exalted above measure. For this thing I besought the Lord thrice, that it might depart from me. And he said unto me, my grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Most gladly, therefore, will I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. Therefore I take pleasure in infirmities and reproaches and necessities and persecution and distresses for Christ's sake. Then one of the greatest oxymorons in all of the Bible makes absolutely no sense at all. Paul says, for when I am weak, then. The indication from the original text is Paul is saying, only then am I strong. The only way you can become strong tonight is that you must become weak. As we begin to unpack this text tonight, I am drawn to the purpose of weakness. What in the world would God send weakness by my place? Why did he send it by Paul's place? Purpose. I notice in verse number 7, in the middle of the verse, he says, there was given to me. I was extremely interested in that phrase, given to me. The little phrase has the idea of a rare, precious treasure or a gift. Very seldom you hear a Baptist thinking his trouble is a rare, precious treasure or a gift. Paul said this thing that God has given me is causing me horrendous pain. He says, I have found it is a rare, precious treasure, a gift. I don't know about you, I'll not speak for you. I find it's so in my own life as it was in Paul's life. Oftentimes, low, weak times in my life often come after high mountaintop experiences. I don't know if you noticed in the text or not where Paul has been now that he is weak. But the Bible tells us in verse number 2, he says, I knew a man in Christ above 14 years ago, whether in the body I cannot tell, or whether out of the body I cannot tell. God knoweth. Such a one caught up into the third heaven. I knew such a man, whether in the body or not, or out of the body I cannot tell. God knoweth. How that he was caught up into paradise and heard unspeakable words which it is not lawful for a man to utter. Paul, quite different than John the Beloved. John the Beloved in Revelations was caught up into the heavens, and God told him, he said, write down everything you see and put them in a book. He caught Paul up into the heavens, showed him everything out there, and told him to keep it to himself. You imagine taking a Baptist preacher into heaven, show him everything up there, and then tell him, don't ever tell nobody about it. And then on top of that, make him as weak as he possibly could be. I'm talking about purpose, weakness. I find more and more in my own life that old age seems to magnify weakness. Paul said the purpose in this weakness in verse number 7, and lest I should be exalted above measure. That little phrase has the idea to think more of myself than is needed. Could I put it in terms maybe you could understand? Lest I get too big for my britches. Thinking I can when I can't. Thought it was interesting. I shared this little thought with you the other night. I mentioned it again. Job said of trouble, we're often shocked when weakness comes trouble. Job said, man born of a woman will only be here a few days. Full of trouble. Hey, preacher, how do I know if I'm going to have trouble? Check your birth certificate when you get home. If your mama was a woman, Paul said you're going to have a bunch of it. Now, if you get home and you look at your birth certificate and your mama wasn't a woman, you may get out of this thing. I don't know. Full of trouble. Thinking about the purpose of weakness. You ever heard this adage? I don't know, when I was coming up, I used to hear it preach a lot. God won't put no more on you than you can bear. You ever been told that? Could I tell you something tonight? It's the biggest lie I've ever been told. Amen. Number one, it's not in the Bible. Amen. Number two, I wouldn't have to go far to get some people to stand up in here tonight and say, man, God has put more on me than I can bear on numerous occasions. Just for a second. Not a redneck speaking now. It's a fair-haired boy speaking. 2 Corinthians chapter 1. Where did they get that idea God won't put no more than you can have? They get that from Paul's writings. He says, there hath no temptation taken you, but such as is common to man. But God is faithful that with the temptation He'll also make a way to escape that you may be able to bear. They come right ahead, you won't put no more than you can bear. Small problem. Paul uses the word temptation there in that passage. solicitation to do evil. Paul said God will never allow the devil to solicit you to do evil more than you can handle it. In 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 8, he said, for we would not, brethren, have you ignorant of our trouble. Totally different Greek word. No solicitation to do evil. Heartaches, trials, sorrows, storms, disappointments, failures, fear, weakness. Would not have you to be ignorant of our trouble which came to us in Asia, that we were pressed out of measure. Paul said, God put so much on me in Asia, it flattened me. Wow. I thought God wouldn't put no more on you than you can handle. Here's the fair-haired boy talking. He said, God put so much on me, it flattened me. Huh? If he do that to Paul, ain't no telling what he'd do to you and I. Watch the text. He said, above strength. Paul said, God put so much on me, I couldn't carry it. Oh, it's bigger than that. Watch the last little phrase in verse 8. Insomuch that we despaired even of life. Paul said, God put so much on me, I wished I was dead. Right. I was talking to a dear friend yesterday. He's in intensive care in Charlotte, North Carolina. He is in desperate need of a liver transplant. And he told me yesterday on the phone, weeping. He said, Tom, he said, I've lost confidence in God. He said, I can't take no more. I said, Randall, you know good and well that the Bible says He'll put more on you than you can handle. He said, I know it, Tom. I said, so why would you lose confidence in Him when He told you right out of the gate that He was going to do it? What in the world would He do that for, preacher? Answer to your question is in 2 Corinthians chapter 1 and verse number 9. But we had the sentence of death in ourselves, that we should not trust in ourselves, but in God which raiseth from the dead. He's going to put more on you than you can handle, so you won't trust your stinking self. You'll get to Him. Amen. Purpose of weakness. Back in our text in 2 Corinthians 12. I mentioned not only the purpose of weakness, could I mention the principle of weakness? You ever see things in the Bible you wish weren't in there? There's something in this little section here I wish wasn't in there. Paul says in verse number 8, for this thing. I wished he'd have told us what his thing was. Because you know, I get around some of you when you're talking about your thing, and I get the feeling myself, maybe I got that thing. See, you know, Paul would have told me what his thing was, I might have that thing. Well, he had to keep it under wraps. This thing. He said, I sought the Lord thrice. What's interesting in that little word thrice, we often think that he just asked about this 3 times, it was over with. But the little word thrice is a cliche phrase of again and again and again and again. He has constantly asked God to be relieved of this thorn, this pain. God's response to him was in verse number 9. And he said unto him, my grace might be sufficient for thee. Doesn't he say that in the Living Bible? Present tense right now, my grace is sufficient. Grace God's ability to carry it, get through it. Grace, God's unmerited favor. A play on the letters in the word grace. God's riches at Christ's expense. Heard all those definitions all my life about grace. Several years ago, I was reading my Bible one day in Corinthians, and Paul said, "And this is the grace of God." I said, "Let me get my pen out. The Holy Ghost is fixing to divine grace, and I want to make sure I write it down." Paul said, "And this is the grace of God, that He who is rich for our sake became poor, that we through His poverty might be made rich." Why has He sent you this weakness? So He can make you rich tonight. Have we given any thought tonight that before Jesus came to this world, how rich He was? He who was rich. Grace, He lived in a place where the paved streets with gold. He sat upon a throne, clear, crystal glass. He did not have a 180-degree rainbow around His throne. No. 360-degree circle around His throne. The walls were made out of all kinds of jewels. The gates to the city where He was from were made out of 12-foot pearls. Love to have the shell they come out of with you. I'm telling you tonight, He was loaded. Have we given any thought as to how poor He became? He came to this earth tonight and had to borrow everything He ever had. He borrowed an inn to stay in a barn. Had to borrow a stable. Mary had to borrow a little feeding trough to lay Him in. He didn't have no home. Said the birds have nests. The animals have places. He said, "I don't have no home." Matter of fact, He didn't have a penny to His name. Taxes come due. He told Peter, he said, "Peter, go out there and throw a hook in the water." He said, "The first fish you catch," he said, I put the money in his mouth. He had to borrow a grave to lay Him in. He who was rich became poor. You and I, through His poverty, might be made rich. He tells Paul in this text, he said, that kind of grace is right now sufficient for thee. I was interested in that little word, sufficient. More than is needed. Abundant. It's literally could actually be taken out of the original language, supersized. Oh, God was in the supersizing business long before McDonald's ever thought about it. He said, when you're at your weakest hour, He said, I can give you supersized grace tonight to help you through it. Oh, telling you tonight, God is more into taking care of us in our troubles than He is about taking us out of our troubles. Most of us tonight, when we get in trouble, there ain't but one thing we're looking for. We're constantly looking for it. We're looking for that sign right there. How can I get out of this? Did you notice the 3 Hebrew boys when they went in the fire? The Bible said they threw them into the midst of the fire. That little phrase, in the midst, the center point or the ignition point, the starting place of the fire. These boys were not looking for the exit door. They were looking for where the fire started. And they found it. The fourth man in the fire. I love the hound out of that. Don't you all stop right there and shout? And some of you ain't ever even said amen in church. Huh? Principle of weakness. Then he gives us this amazing oxymoron. Verse number 10 in its principle, he says, for when I am weak, the indication is, and then and only then when I'm weak, then it is then that I am strong. So often tonight, we get so confused. We think God's not working. We try to get up close to Him, scooch up close to Him. We read our Bibles, we pray, we come to Sunday school, we come to church. We try to get up closer to Him in hopes that He's going to make us stronger and stronger. But instead, He makes us weaker and weaker. And it confuses us. Because we do not realize that everything in God's world is the opposite of what it is in our world. God always gives us the opposite so that He can help us tonight. You say, boy, I want to be a success. God said, well, I'll send you some failure. Boy, I want to be rich. God said, let me send you some poverty. Boy, I want to go up. God said, let me take you down. Some of you young people here tonight, oh, I can't wait till I get out of my mom and daddy's house so I can live. God said, let me let you die. Everything is in the opposite in His world. How come? Oh, He's letting us in on this grace. Yes, well, I don't understand that. I just don't believe that because I don't understand. I don't know about you. There's a lot of things I don't understand, but I believe. Have you ever figured out there at your house how they get all them people in that TV? That wire on the back of that thing ain't about that big. Man, they're slipping millions of people through that little wire. I ain't never sat around. I ain't touching that remote. I just don't understand how they get all them people in that boat. No, hand it to me. I'm working. See, there's a lot of things tonight we back off from. One of those is tonight getting up closer to God, wanting Him to make us stronger, find that only He makes us weaker. The world does He want to do that for? That you can find that His grace is sufficient. Purpose, principle. This text tonight, could I point out the perfecting of weakness? He says in verse number 9, He said unto him, my grace, God's grace, not Baptist grace, oh God forbid. This is God's grace, God's ability, God's strength. It is the only route into getting through my weak spells. Paul said that he found this grace was his ability to lift it. He says in verse number 10, for am I weak, then am I strong. God gave him the ability to lift it and walk on. Infuse strength in me. I wouldn't give you 2 cents. With Baptists all the time talking about, y'all pray for me, I tell you, I'm really happy. As I travel across this country, one of the greatest things is to see people that are fighting hell by the acre, probably each slap up with some kind of cancer. They don't never mention it, don't never say nothing about it. They just lifting it and walking on. Amen. Grace has become sufficient. The ability to lift it and walk on. Paul said in this perfecting of weakness, not only is He giving me the ability to lift it, but he says in verse number 9, He has given me the ability to reflect it. He said, most gladly, therefore, will I rather glory in my infirmities. That little word glory is a word for a mirror. He said, in the middle of my infirmities, in the middle of my troubles, he says, I want to reflect. I want to mirror to the world. This is Christ. See me. You've seen Him. Oh, grace is the only one that would give you the ability tonight. Not only to lift it, reflect it. Paul said to enjoy it. He says in verse number 10, therefore I take pleasure. He said, it is my highest joy. Go through these infirmities. Oh, I tell you, you won't trip up one day and say, well, I sure am enjoying this trouble. I'm going, no! Unless God's infused grace into you. That's right. Ability to enjoy it. I notice in our text there is the ability to endure it. Paul says in verse 9, most gladly therefore I glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ might rest upon me. I tell you, when you go to lifting it, you go to reflecting it, you go to enjoying it, God will put His power upon you. I was interested in the word power. The Greek word for dynamos. We get our word for dynamite from it. Dynamite. I've seen a lot of Baptists over the years. I saw when I pastored. They make one little decision, pray one little prayer, and they explode one time, boom, and it's all over. That's not that word that's used here. The word that is used here is the dynamo, the box that causes the explosion. These old boys that do these implosions, these big buildings, they set the dynamite all over the building. They go across the street, and they got a dynamo, they got an explosion box. They push the button, and all kinds of explosions. They can take that box and go down the street and make some more ba-boom-booms. When God saved me, He put the dynamo, the ba-boom box inside of it. When it is fed grace, it causes me to lift it, causes me to enjoy it, causes me to reflect it, causes me to endure it. I know I've told you this before, but I'll tell you again. You know, God's power. I prayed for an old boy in West Virginia every year, some years ago. Him and his daddy had a goat. Old goat was bad, about butting you. He said, you turn your back on that goat, he gonna butt you just as sure as you shoot. He said him and his daddy was out dynamiting stumps one day. He said we had set some dynamite around a stump, and he said we was all pretty good ways. He says I had got a fuse, and he said I had lit the fuse, and the fuse was running. And he said I looked, and he said that goat was on top of that stump. He said, I don't believe I ever see a goat go that high in half. He said it burnt every bit of the hair off from him, right down to the hide. He said, but didn't kill the goat. He said, the goat lived. He said, but after that, he said, if that goat was behind you and you sensed that he was going to charge, you're going to bust. He said, all you had to do was put your chin right here on your shoulder and go. And he said that goat would be in the next cabinet. Oh, I tell you, when weakness comes along, if you've got the grace of God, you can tell weakness, and it'll bow to you. You can lift it and walk on. You can reflect it. You can enjoy it tonight. Talking about the perfecting of weakness. I close tonight in Romans chapter number 8. At the production of weakness. Production of weakness. I don't know about you, not speak for you. All of these 5 ministers that I spoke on this week, if they were having a line for us to get in that line and get one of these, I'll let you take my place. I don't want none. Boy, ain't nobody in their right mind. Give me some of that storm, Jay. Come on and blow my house away. Oh, I love that. Nobody would want disappointment. Man, I tell you, let my kids just miss the point and hang on that. I love it when they do that. Nobody want to get in that line. Fear, failure. Nobody in here tonight said, man, I want to get in that weakness line. You put one foot in front of the other. What in the world's God doing? Production of weakness. Romans chapter 8, verse 28. And we know that what? All. Pretty inclusive. I'd imagine that would include storms, failure, disappointment, fear, weakness. We know that all things work together for good. I tell you, having been saved for 51 years now, I have been saved long enough to see some of my bad stuff turn out good. He says, to them that love God, for them who are called according to His purpose. For whom He did foreknow, He did also predestinate to be conformed to the image of His Son. What is He doing with all these strange ministers? He's sending them into your life and my life to make us like Christ. Well, how's He doing it? Paul says He's working them together. Now, like I said, I would not take any one of these by themselves. I don't know what it would be like to get them in a package. But I was interested in this little phrase, worketh them together. Worketh them together. That little phrase that he uses there is a little word for kneading dough. Kneading dough. Making bread. Kneading dough. Tell you a little story and I'm done. First phrase of my story tonight. If you do not agree with this phrase, I shall not help you at all. You can forget the rest of the story. You'll think it's stupid. Here's the opening phrase. I hate buttermilk. If you're here tonight and you love buttermilk, I can't help you. Ain't no help for you. Amen. I come from a buttermilk family. My mama always had a quart or half a gallon of buttermilk. Even when she went into retirement center, she always had buttermilk. I've seen them do that. I've seen them put the cornbread in there. I've seen them put the onion in there at night. I've seen it all. When I was 5 years old, I tried it. It did not get to my Adam's apple before I puked that mess back up. It's all. I thought, maybe it is a mature drink. Because, you know, I used to not like college. Now I love them. I even like smelling cooking. So I thought maybe buttermilk would fall next and just got to grow into it. So when I was about 19 years old, I tried it again. It ain't changed. It's still nasty. Awful stuff. A friend of mine not some time ago took his granddaughter out for breakfast one morning at the truck stop. He ordered buttermilk. He excused himself, told her he needed to go to the restroom. When he come back, she told him, she said, Papa, she said, don't drink that milk, it's sour. That is a smart girl. Put it in the septic tank so it'll get to work. Hate buttermilk. Oh, it was probably 15 years straight. I held meetings in Alaska, and I held meetings a number of times for an old boy that had 5 kids. They all grown now. But I don't believe I've ever been in a family where all 5 of them were candidates for rhythm. You know, usually you just have one that's wide open and they just sort of taper off. No. If mama gonna get a crown when she gets there. Yes, sir. In dark seasons up there in Alaska, she would move everything out of the kitchen and she would flour the kitchen floor. And they'd make a skate run out of it. They was in there in the socks, they skate. One morning, she had prepared a skate run. And I was watching him. And one of them skated by his mama's flour bin, got a handful of flour, and was eating it. I like to throw it up. She had a big old 5-gallon can of lard grease. And one of them skated by, got him a hand of lard grease, and was eating it like ice cream. Sitting right there on that couch in the Nilchik, Alaska, I come to the greatest revelation I've ever come to in my life. I realized that I didn't like nothing that was in biscuits. But I have never met a biscuit I didn't like. A hot one, a cold one, a bacon one, a sausage one, an egg one, a brown one, a light one, a half-done one, a doughy one. It doesn't matter. Amen. What has happened? Somebody has taken a bunch of things that I don't like and they have worked them together. What in the world is God doing in my life, in your life? He's taking a bunch of things that we do not like and He's working them together. He's making biscuits, and one day in the heavens we'll butter them and jelly them and eat them by the angels will walk.
Listen, I need a book on how you follow that. Blessing, Lord. Stand in. Blessing, Lord. This last 5 services has been a learning experience for our church. We've learned that everything we go through, that God is still in control. That He is in control through our storms, through our disappointments. He is even in control through our failures. He is even in control when we have fear. And tonight, to end up, God lets us know that we have weaknesses. Because that's hard for folks to comprehend. We all like thinking that we, pardon me, holier than thou. I've never been so belittled this week as I have this week at preaching. But I've never learned more than I've ever looked at. Amen. Blessed Lord. Tonight you might need just to pray. You might just need to come and talk to God about some things that you're going through. Some things you're having to face. I find it very, very peculiar, just like Brother Tom said, that Paul would even write about his weakness. Because Paul, in my eyes, was one of the greatest preachers that ever walked. But for him to tell us that he had a weakness was to let us know it's okay. It's okay. It's okay if you're not the best at everything. It's okay. You can take it to the Lord. Notice who he took his weakness to. He took it to God. He took it to God. And God already knew. Come on, Brother Glenn. We'll sing a verse of a song. God already knew the problem that he had. Tonight, I want to ask you something. We're going to sing a verse of a song. We don't want to go home without giving somebody an opportunity to make things right with God or to talk to God about some of the issues in your life. I'm so glad that God's ear is not dead, that he can't hear us.
Yes, sir.
I'm so glad that his hand is not too short. His arm is not too short, that he can't reach down and help us. But it's up to you tonight. They're going to sing just a verse of a song, just to give you an opportunity to come pray. Go ahead and sing, brother.
Are you looking for a place to worship God in spirit and in truth? Hello, I'm Frankie Green, pastor of Trinity Baptist Church in Auburn, Georgia. We would like to invite you to be in our service with us. Sunday school starts at 10 with morning worship at 11. Sunday evening worship begins at 6 and Wednesday night prayer service at 7. We are a King James Bible-believing, fundamental, independent Baptist church reaching out to those who need a special touch from God. For more information, you can visit us at TrinityBaptistAuburn.com or on Facebook at Trinity Baptist Church Auburn. We welcome you to Trinity Baptist Church, where you will become part of a family.